Hi, everyone. We would like to welcome you to our Microsoft 365 Pulse webcast. You'll notice that there are two missing people in our images, two, count them, two. Adam has some well-deserved time off, and Jen is off speaking in Orlando at one of the Sharepoint Microsoft 365 conferences. So you have the Tom and Tamara show today, come to you live from Casa Tam Tom. So we are going to go ahead and cover the changes that we found in this week's updates for the roadmap. We will cover in development, which means that Microsoft is currently working on getting it all ready to go out, testing it, all those good things. Then we will go to rolling out, which means that it's starting to hit the clients in target release, standard release, means that it could show up at any time, but it may and probably will not be out there in your client right now. The next to final category is launched, which means you should have it in your client, provided that it's targeted for your particular client. It may not be out there for DoD or GCC, GCC High, but for anything that it is targeted for, it should be out there. And then at the very end, we have some cancellations, and we only have one. In fact, we're really going to mix it up. I'm going to do canceled right up front because I know, what? It really doesn't matter. It's one called Microsoft Search for GCC. It's a duplicate of another one, so it's being removed from the roadmap. No big deal. You didn't lose anything. You didn't gain anything. We have cancel taken care of. We will now go to in development, and I will go ahead and throw this to Tamara so she can cover some of the things that she found interesting for this week. So Tamara, take it away.
Great. I'll cover a couple things since it's just the two of us, but I'll try not to hoard everything. So I leave a couple things for you.
I figured I would let you go first, so I wasn't accused of hoarding. So this is fine.
Okay, great. So a couple different things. Microsoft Teams inline message translation in channels for iOS. So what this means is the inline message translation in channels lets users translate channel posts and replies into their preferred language. So to translate a message, press and hold the channel post or reply, and then select translate. The post or reply will then be translated into your UI language by default. If you want to change the translation language, go to Settings, General, and Translation. That's due to come out in July for the general commercial tenants.
Also, it's a little side note on that one.
Yeah.
A little further down in the roadmap, it's also scheduled for Android. So you should get it in either of your clients.
Great. Thanks for pointing that out.
Not a problem.
Then we also have SharePoint swap the root site from Sharepoint Admin Center for customers with more than 10,000 seats. So what that means is customer tenants with more than 10,000 seats or more can now swap their SharePoint root site from within the SharePoint Admin Center. This, I think, is going to be big for like mergers or acquisitions when you're trying to bring two groups of people together. I think this will be really important, especially if somebody went with a vanity URL for the root site. Yeah. So sometimes the business picks out the root site without the help of the IT department, and that can run into some problems. Yeah. Then in Visio, we now have organizational charts for the web. So visualize your team structure, hierarchy levels, and reporting relationships with the new org chart shapes in Visio for the web. Users with Visio Plan 1 or 2 license will be able to create org charts directly in Visio for the web or from data in Excel using the Data Visualizer add-in. I think this is huge because there is right now, I would say, no real good way to automatically, without buying a third-party app.
Right.
No good way to visualize your entire organization. And I think this is a good way to do it.
Yeah, I know that a lot of people have hacked together solutions in Visio, but it was always seemingly looking like it was hacked together. And having something that's a little bit more straightforward is a great addition to tool set there. So that's a good thing.
Absolutely. And then the last one I'll do for now, and then I'll send it over to Tom so it doesn't seem like just the Tamar show. And then he can send it back to me because that's got a whole lot more. Is Microsoft Teams offline access for files. And this is slated to come out in June. It's in development, but it's slated to come out in June, so I would expect the end of June. Users can now access previously opened files even when there is no internet connectivity.
That one sounds really interesting. I will go ahead and say the words. Wow, this reminds me of Lotus Notes. But it's interesting in the fact that they're saying that you can get previously accessed files, which lends me to think that perhaps when you look at a file in Teams, that it is syncing it somewhere locally.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm really curious to see how this one plays out. It's a great feature. I love it.
And I think it'll be a cached version of the document, which I think could cause some problems.
Yeah.
But we'll wait to see how it plays out and see what Microsoft did with it.
Yeah, the whole
Tom?
offline replication. Thank you. The whole offline replication thing can be interesting at times if you have replication save conflicts and stuff like that. So it'll be interesting to see how that flows out. A couple that I will start off with because they are semi-related. One is Microsoft Stream variable playback speed 0.5 to 2 times for Microsoft.
I am so excited about this.
Yeah, I mean, you had it when things were going into Stream natively, but then when they started doing saving things to SharePoint or OneDrive, yeah, you lost a lot of those features. And now they're starting to apparently go back and add some of those features back in. So I think that is awesome because there are a number, hopefully none of my management's listening to this. There are a number of meetings that we have in our organization that they record on a regular basis. And it is dangerously easy just to say, okay, instead of attending a 30-minute or an hour meeting, I'm going to wait for them to send the email out with the recording, and I'm going to listen to it at 1.5 and save 15, 20 minutes in the process. So I love the fact that team meetings are going to be able to do this now and that they will add that back in. The other one, which is labeled for Microsoft Search, but it's related, says find a meeting recording based on what was said. So the fact that the transcription that you have in the meeting is now going to be indexed in Microsoft Search. So you can say, oh, Bob said blah, 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 and search for it and find the meeting recording where that was actually said. Again, being that so many things are now going to visual, have the meetings, disperse information that way. The fact that you can now actually do search on the things that were said in the meeting, I think is a really critical feature. So I really like that one. Let me scroll back up just a little bit here. A couple things on the SharePoint side. For SharePoint email notification settings, with this features, users can unsubscribe or resubscribe to their favorite SharePoint email notifications. Preferences will be respected for these email notifications. So I'm guessing those are things like the daily news, that comes out. And so any of these things that come out from SharePoint, you're going to have an easy way to say, hey, I want to unsubscribe from A, C, and Q, rather than, unsubscribe and then go, well, I need to get that back. Where do I do that? So it sounds like they're going to have one panel where you can get all that information, which is nice. Another thing that they're coming out with, which should be out by the end of this month, is page detail updates for SharePoint Modern Pages. And this is going to update the page detail panel so that you'll be able to allow page authors to actually delete a page from that panel or change the URL of the page from that panel, which is great because normally to change a URL, you'd have to go out to site pages and change the name of the page there. So it would change the URL and stuff like that. Being able to do it on the panel for the page details makes it a lot more straightforward. Plus they have a nice little link in the panel now that says copy page URL. So you click that, you got a page URL, and then you can go paste that anywhere that you need to. Let me see if there was one more thing that I wanted to mention. There's the inline message, or it's shared with list. No, I'm pretty much done. So Tamara, go ahead, take it away, because you said you had more.
I have more. So Microsoft Teams and PowerPoint for Business, annotation support in PowerPoint Live in Teams and slideshow. So Microsoft is introducing a virtual laser pointer and ink annotations so presenters can engage more with the audience by drawing attention or clarifying certain sections of the PowerPoint deck. So just as you would with a physical laser pointer in the room, PowerPoint Live allows you to effectively point at the different places in the presentation so the audience can easily follow along with what's in the slide. Now that's slated to come out in June, and I think I've already seen it. So maybe this should be in rolling out as opposed to in development. But I did put this spreadsheet together on Monday, so that could explain why I'm seeing it, even though it's in development.
Right. I think that one's a cool change.
Yeah. Anything
Makes
that
me
has
wish
to do with doing presentations, I get really happy about.
Yeah, because that's the world you live in. I really, though, when I see these kind of things, it makes me lust for a laptop that has touchscreen. Because when people are going, oh, you can annotate with words, I'm like, not with a mouse if you want to read it, that's for sure. So I'm really looking forward to perhaps at some point either getting like an iPad device where I could do that, or actually get a laptop that is touch enabled. So that would be.
Why don't you get a real computer like a Surface?
You have anything else you want to talk about here?
Yeah, I do.
Okay.
Planner, view planner tasks on your Outlook calendar in GCC High, GCC, and DoD. I think that's going to be great for those areas. What I really want to see, though, is in the DoD client in GCC, if you assign a planner task to somebody, they do not get an email notification. Microsoft, we want that email notification.
Wow.
We've been waiting a long time. Make that happen.
Yeah, it seems like a no-brainer.
Yeah, you would think. So I'm just checking in development. Okay. So there's a couple things left. So Microsoft Teams admin notifications for custom app submissions. When a developer submits a custom app for IT admin approval, admins will receive a notification in a dedicated Teams channel so they can review and take next steps to publish the app. I thought that was neat. And then they're announcing guest access in DoD and GCC High, which is imperative to keep that collaborative environment so DoD and GCC High can work with their vendors and contractors and still collaborate. So that's huge.
Okay.
And then speaker attribution. Go ahead, Tom.
No, I was going to say anything else you need to cover, but yes, you do have something else you want to cover.
Yes, I do. Speaker attribution in live transcript in team meetings in the GCC clouds, and breakout rooms for DoD are coming. And then the team webinar capabilities, that's the one that allows you to schedule meetings for like up to 1,000 people. That's coming to GCC in July. So I would hope to see it in DoD by August, September.
Yeah, it seems like GCC High, and DoD got a lot of love this week.
Yeah, they did. And that's because they're shutting down the commercial version of Teams and going to their Department of Defense environment. So they're trying to get feature parity.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense.
Cool. So that's why there's been a big push.
Okay.
And then just a lot of love for the OneDrive sharing experience.
Yes, very much.
So they're changing the permission levels that you can have and how you can set it up. That's all I have for in development. I'm done.
Wow. You just went to town this week.
I did.
Of course, there's nobody else you had to share with.
I like that in yellow.
So we will go ahead and go to rolling out. Again, this means that is on its way out to us, the end users. Many of these things we've probably talked about before because they've been in development. So we may not go into a lot of them, but this is more of a, hey, remember this feature? It's now on its way out. I'm going to go ahead and go first because I have a couple things that are not team related. Everything else I highlighted is team related, and I realize that is Tamara's domain. So with that, Microsoft Forms, you should start seeing the word cloud data insights for open text questions. So if you have open text questions in any of your Microsoft Forms form, you can get a word cloud, which makes it easier to say what are some of the key words based on size of the words or phrases that you see pop up, and it can kind of give you a high level, oh, here's what I should be looking for because the word sucks showed up in huge 72 bold or some font there. So that's
I'm really excited about that one because you get so much good information in those open text boxes, but it's really hard to take any action or to
get trends,
combine them. Yeah, spot a trend. Thank you.
Yeah, so that's a really good one. And then the last one, because I kind of got down a rabbit hole with this week because I thought this is really cool. OneDrive and SharePoint for Business, Immersive Reader support in OneDrive and SharePoint. If you haven't played with Immersive Reader,
on and on about that.
I did. It was cool. If you haven't played with Immersive Reader, I really recommend you do it because it's pretty neat. In SharePoint pages, if it's not a home page and it's a modern page for news posts or regular modern pages, what you can do is there's a little icon in your menu bar that says Immersive Reader. You click that, it gets rid of all the images, basically everything on the page except for text. And then, and this serves, in my mind, two purposes. One is for the reason that I'm about to explain. The other one is if you're really distracted by a lot of clutter and stuff like that, and you just want to focus on the text, this is great because it's text with a white background. That's it. So all you see are the words. But then what you can do is at the bottom, you can click an icon that basically allows that page to start being read to you. And you can speed up or slow down. You can go from a female voice to a male voice and back again. So that's really nice, and it really sounds good. I mean, it's not just a robotic think up the words going. It's actually emotion, and things go down and questions go up and stuff like that. But what's really cool is if you check the options, you can have it translated either a word or the entire document to another language. There's like 50 some odd languages out there. I did check for Klingon. It's not there. I'm sorely disappointed. However, so like, because Tamara and I are working on learning Italian, I can go out there and take a page, say translate document Italian. The entire page appears in Italian now. And when you click the reading, they read it to you in Italian. And that is really good if you're trying to learn another language, to just get the sound of the language. You can also break it up in terms of breaking things out by syllables, having it labeled the nouns, the verbs, the adjectives, the adverbs. It's just oh yeah, it is a really cool thing, especially if you're into words and language and stuff like that. Really recommend you play with it. It's not something you probably need for your business unless you're a multi-language corporation all over the world, or you're working with things that are being sent into you by people where English is not a primary language, or they're sending it to you in like Spanish or something like that. This is a really good way to get that translation. It appears to be accurate. Having said that, I don't know another language well enough to say it's accurate, but I did have somebody play with it in our organization this week, and he had looked at what was it? The Thai? I think it was the Thai language, one of the Thai languages. And he knows that fairly well. And he said, this was a really good translation. So again, to me, it's a little bit more of a toy, but it's a really cool toy. So go play with it. I like it a lot. Now, I'm going to go ahead and turn this over to Tamara because everything else I had highlighted started with Microsoft Teams. And, I'm going to be spending a lot of time with her in the car over the next week, and I don't really want to step on her toes at this time. So with this, Tamara, go ahead.
All right. So Microsoft Teams presenter mode, this is rolling out. Presenters will be able to customize how content shows up for meeting participants, including overlaying their video on content. So you can be like a news reporter with your PowerPoint slides.
Very cool.
I think it's neat.
Yeah.
A lot of times I find that if you're doing a virtual meeting and it's just the slides, it's not as engaging
Right.
as when you can actually see the presenter.
Agreed.
So that one's neat. Sorry, I lost my mouse for a second there.
I was going to say, wow, she's kind of slowing down. I thought she had more.
Microsoft Teams polls are being added to Teams meetings for GCC. And for forms, form response receipts are rolling out for GCC, GCC High, and DoD. So that's nice. Oh, and then this is cool. Templates for creation of new teams.
Ooh, nice.
That's rolling out for GCC. And what this does is, let's say you do a lot of projects, and each project should have its own team. Well, you can templatize a project team so that all the channels are the same, so you have consistency across the multiple projects. So whether you're starting a project or just joining a project that's already in flight, you're already familiar with the organizational structure. I love this idea. There's a lot of love this week for the stuff that's going on.
And just as a side note, I really like that word templatize.
Templatize? Thank you. I made it up.
It rolls really nicely. It's
It
like
does.
one time
It seems like a real word, doesn't it?
Well, yeah, and somebody one time was telling me, you need to, you've got, immediate gratification, and then you learn delayed gratification. And I turned to her and said, yes, but in your case, you've evolved past that to anticipatory gratification, as in, I should understand what you want before you want it. And I just love that word, anticipatory.
Anticipatory. It is great alliteration, isn't it?
Yes, it just flows. I love it. Anyway, back to the yellows.
Meanwhile, Microsoft Teams spotlighting multiple users at the same time in a meeting. So organizers and presenters can now spotlight up to 7 participants simultaneously during a meeting. I don't know if this comes through to the recording. So what happened was, a user was recording a very important meeting with a very high level executive. And this high level executive was presenting, but because she had her webcam on.
Oh, I remember this one.
It focused on her for the entire meeting. And she was like, I am so glad I was not multitasking, and occasionally nodded my head. So I don't know if the spotlighting feature follows through to recording, but that's going to be something to experiment with, because I think that will really help when you're trying to capture like a town hall or a debrief from a high level executive. So I think that'll be very important. And then just a whole lot of love for PowerPoint in Teams. So present from PowerPoint to Teams for Windows, present from PowerPoint to Teams for the web. And then the together mode extensibility is coming out. Build your own scenes that elevate your meeting experience. And we believe, says Microsoft, that by making together mode extensible, creators can create immersive scenes and users can go beyond simple video conferencing. So started building your scenes by going to the developer portal for Microsoft Teams. So you could put everybody on the Starship Enterprise.
Yeah, I refused to highlight this one in one of our internal things of what's coming up, because I thought, I just know as soon as they find out you can build your own together scenes, somebody higher up in the org is going to go, hey, we need to have a together scene for our main conference room, and you need to do that right away. I'm like, no, I really don't. So I'm like, we'll just let them find that one on their own, okay?
Yep. But that's all I had for rolling out.
Okay. There is one that I'm going to bring up. I think it's also for iPhone too, iPhone also, but it's Teams casting from Android Teams app. So basically, for quick ad hoc sessions that don't necessarily require setting up a formal meeting, people can use Teams castings to wirelessly connect to a Teams room from their mobile device and display content. Users can broadcast their screen and cast content stored locally on their device or accessible via Office 365. At least for me, I know some people do this flawlessly, but when you try to share your iPhone or your Android phone with users, it is problematic at best. Uh, in this particular case, the fact that it's now allowing you to do this Teams casting and you can share stuff that's on your phone directly with others that are in a regular Teams meeting, I think that's really intriguing. I'm looking forward to trying that one out. And I hope it's on iPhone too, because I'm an iPhone person, not an Android person. So,
Great.
okay, so that took care of rolling out. We will now switch over to launched. Launched are ones we definitely should have talked about prior to this. So I don't know how many that I want to necessarily bring to your attention, but things in this category you should have in your tenant now. Let me see. Okay, there's only one team thing that I had, but two other ones that aren't team. So I'll go ahead and lead on this and then let her close it out. Android for Outlook for Android, use your voice to initiate a phone call or Teams. This is also Outlook for iOS. Start using your voice in Outlook to connect and call a specific person via their phone or Teams. Again, if you're spending a lot of time on your phone prior to COVID, but now that COVID's on the downhill trend, you'll probably spend more time in your car. You can't be playing with your phone while you're in the car and driving. This will enable you just to start phone calls by saying, hey, call blah, 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 and it's going to take that off and do that for you within the Microsoft 365 environment. So I think that's a pretty cool feature. Looking forward to playing with that one. And would you like to take it from here and close out with
You just have the one?
Well, I've got another one, which is chat with
Go ahead.
Group chats, Microsoft Teams.
Go ahead.
Sure.
Yeah.
Okay. Microsoft Teams, chat with externals in group chats. With this feature, users can create group chats that include people external to their organization using Teams, and it requires that all users have external access capabilities enabled. So I think this is very similar to what you used to have, or what you probably still have if you're still using it, in Skype, where you could have multiple chats with external people and have group chats and stuff like that. Now you're able to do that with Teams if you're allowing external users into your Teams environment. So I think this is a really cool thing because we have a lot of requests and we're getting more and more. We're still trying to iron out how we want to do external. But the fact that you can now say, hey, I want to have these three outside vendors and a group of us all connect for a chat in Teams, and you don't have to do some hopefully convoluted process to get everybody access to a Teams and that it's just a little bit more seamless to get there, and you can get that kind of external collaboration going without going through all the hoops and hurdles and things like that. So
yeah, all you need to invite an external user is to put in their full email address, their full O365 email address.
Okay, so cool.
So,
That should give people a lot more flexibility going forward.
yep.
Oh, I'm sorry. I just have one more.
Go ahead.
And I remembered I mentioned this when it first came out because I thought it was amusing. Microsoft Teams expanded emoji picker. Now
I know.
you have a wider range of diversity and representation. The emoji set has expanded from 85 to over 800 emojis with a category selector, skin tone selector, and short code picker. So if you're really into emojis, rock on. Microsoft loves you.
And use this as an opportunity to be diverse in your expressions.
Yes, I mean, you can pick somebody who looks like you instead of somebody who always looks like me.
Yep.
So that's all I had. Go ahead and
Okay,
close this out here and then wrap us.
sure. I thought this was odd, so I'll highlight this. Microsoft Search real-time flight updates in Outlook mobile and web.
Yes.
I get them from my airline. But apparently you can get it, and it's done through Bing. So the updates include the flight delays, changes to departure gate, as well as baggage carousels on arrival, in addition to notifications that will be triggered for flight delays and cancellations. So I suppose this is good if you have to use multiple airlines and you just want everything all in one place. I think this is a good feature. If you fly the same airline, why not just get the airlines app? I don't know.
I also find it interesting because I seem to vaguely remember over the last year or two that they had talked about adding a lot of features into Outlook, like, hey, here's your travel time for your next appointment based on its location, and here's your flight stuff. And it seemed like they then backed off of a lot of that, and I'm
Well,
not
it's a
sure
little
why.
stalkerish.
Yeah, well, that's true too.
Yeah.
But now it seems like they're trying to throw some of that back in, which again, if it's not something you have to spend a lot of time trying to set up, see how it works.
Interesting thing in Microsoft Teams, you can block downloads for non-channel team meeting recordings in OneDrive. So all users with view-only permissions of non-channel team meetings recorded are uploaded to OneDrive will now be blocked from downloading the recording by default. I don't know how I feel about this.
I can see where perhaps, say you've had a company meeting that is talking about layoffs, let's say, and it's a quick 15-minute meeting. Here's things that are going on. We hate to do this,
Okay.
so on and so forth. And of course, everybody in the company can view it.
Right.
Probably one of the last things you want is somebody going, this is really bad, man. I'm going to download this and forward it to my nearest investigative reporter, and it's going to hit the news tomorrow.
Good point. Good point.
Probably a good idea not to allow people to do that. There's other ways you can get around it, of course. However,
Right.
that takes away the easy way to share stuff like that. So,
yep. It's like locking your doors. It's going to keep the good people honest.
Right.
But if they really want to get in, they'll find a way to get in.
The people with the lockpicks are still going to be able to get in, but they at least have to work
or
for it.
A rock
And they may
and
go
a
to an
window.
easier. Well, there's that too, yeah.
I'm a little old school. I'm a little brute force.
I can't work with tiny tools. Just give me a big rock.
Exactly. My hands are too small. So another thing that I thought was interesting in Microsoft Teams is anonymous user usage reports. It doesn't mean that you're reporting on anonymous usage, but what it means is that you can anonymize the user data. I don't think I'm saying that right.
You are, I think.
Okay.
Of course, I'm understanding
report,
you, which doesn't necessarily mean much because I understand you anyway. But
we have we win at charades.
This is true. We do.
Protecting user privacy while viewing, downloading, and sharing and accessing the team's usage reports. Once enabled, personally identifiable information like username and email addresses and Active Directory IDs will be anonymized. So I think this is great, especially if you want to share that data with, let's say you have an outside contractor who is helping you stand up teams or helping you drive adoption to teams. Now you can share those usage reports without sharing sensitive, personally identifiable information about your users. So I think this is great. It's rolling out to GCC High, all commercial and GCC. So I'll be excited when this comes out for DoD too.
Yeah, and I think this also comes into play. I know that when they talk about things like your usage analytics, and organizational analytics and how people are feeling, one of the very first conversations you usually have is, I don't want my managers knowing all this stuff about me. So if a manager or somebody higher up in the org is going, how many people are using this particular team site? you may want to give them that information, but you may not want it to show up on a person by person basis, so they can't go, hey, Bob hasn't signed in 2 weeks. That may not be what you want to be able to share. So
talk about micromanaging.
Boy, it's beyond me, that's for sure.
So another thing I'm excited about, I get excited about a lot of stuff because I have no outside hobbies. It's really, really sad. Microsoft Planner Sync Message Center posts to Planner. It's coming to government clouds.
That
really
is
excited.
Most wonderful feature we have. I update that daily from what's out in the message center. Then I sync it to our planner, and then I go through and assign it to the buckets that we want and the due dates. And then once a week, we review all that stuff, assign it, either say we don't care, no action necessary. Oh, this belongs to Tom. We even have a category on there because we joked, because I do a lot of the communication of these things. Or go, Tom, do you want to communicate this? Like, God, I should care. And so we have a category now called Tom Should Care.
Nice.
So it's rather amusing.
It means exactly what it says.
It means I should really care, but just can't get worked up over this one.
But I'm having a problem.
There you go.
And then improvements for managing attendee audio permissions in Teams meetings. This is coming out to GCC High, GCC, all the commercial tenants, and DoD. So meeting presenters and organizers can manage attendee audio permissions with greater flexibility. Attendees no longer must request to speak for the organizer or presenter to allow them to unmute. And presenters and organizers can prevent individuals from unmuting instead of all attendees at once. This is when it's important to use your meeting options to set up who the presenters are, so that they're not affected by this.
Yeah, and also to perhaps, maybe designate 1 or 2 presenters out there that may not be presenting, but who can moderate and go out there and clean stuff up. Because I know when I do a presentation with one of my coworkers on a weekly basis, one of us will do the talking, the other one's pretty much in control of the meeting. But once I do the intro, I go more into moderator mode. So if
checking the chat, checking hands raised.
Yeah, or you're sitting there, she's talking, and all of a sudden you hear someone go, no, I don't think that's the case. I'm not doing, like, okay, who's speaking? Boom, mute. So those are the kind of things that if you have another person set up as a presenter, quote unquote, they can help you take care of that stuff in the middle of a meeting without the actual presenter being bothered by it.
Right. And then this is really exciting. It's not out to GCC, GC High, and DoD yet, but Adobe Sign integration with the approval app in Microsoft Teams, so you can sign documents.
That's good.
Through the approval process in Microsoft Teams. So I'm sure there's a cost involved with that, since Adobe Sign integration or Adobe Sign is a third-party application. But I think it's worth it.
Easier to use that, yeah.
Because
I think a lot of people.
Sign doesn't have an app that's integrated with the approval process yet.
Right. If a lot of people are using that functionality, yeah, you can build your own, but if it's there as an option, you can just select and boom, you're ready to go with it. Yeah.
How nice not to have to support custom code.
Exactly.
And then one last thing in launch, and that's in Excel. I usually do not get excited about Excel, but I got excited about Excel because you can search values within the data validation drop-down list. So did I put this in? Let's say it's a huge drop-down list. You can actually do a search. And it'll also auto-complete it for you.
Nice.
So that's nice. That rolled out. And that rolled out to GCC High, GCC, the commercial tenant, and DoD.
Everybody got that love.
Yep.
So are you done?
I'm done.
You're done. Well, then wrap us up here, Tamara.
All right. Well, thanks so much for tuning in. That's all the news that's fit to print. Thanks so much for joining us, and have a great day.
Bye, everyone.
Bye now.